The studio hallways smelled like fresh paint and warm electronics. David Lewis adjusted the strap of his backpack and checked the address again on his phone. Same place, same time, no mistake. Studio 14. He had imagined this building for years. He had recorded in closets, in spare bedrooms, in soundproofed corners of cheap apartments. He had worked nights, redone takes until his throat burned, learned how to control silence as much as sound, and now he was here. The security desk sat just inside the glass doors. A woman behind it looked up as David entered. "Jess," she asked, already reaching for a clipboard. "I'm here for a meeting," David said calmly. "With Horizon Audio." She frowned slightly. "Are you early?" "No," David replied. 10 sharp. With Mark Feldman. Her eyes flicked down to his clothes. Clean. Professional. Simple. Then back to his face. "Okay," she said slowly. "You can wait over there." Shay pointed to a chair near the wall. David nodded and sat. People passed through the hallway, carrying equipment, coffee, laptops. No one looked at him for more than a second. Except they did. Too quickly. Too often. A man with a headset walked by, slowed, then looked back. The receptionist whispered something into her desk phone. David didn't move. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. At 10:12, a young assistant approached him. "Hey," she said politely. "Can I help you?" "I'm here for a contract meeting," David repeated. "David Lewis." She blinked. "Oh, one moment." She walked away. David exhaled slowly. This feeling wasn't new. The quiet uncertainty. The pause where the room decided who you were allowed to be. Finally, a door opened. A man stepped out, smiling until his eyes landed on David. The smile froze. "David?" the man asked. "Yes," David said. "Stand in." Mark! There it was. The flicker. The recalculation. Mark recovered quickly. "Oh, great! Come on in." Inside the conference room, 2 other people sat at the table. Both white. Both holding folders. They looked up. Silence, then confusion. Mark cleared his throat. "Everyone, this is David Lewis. Our voice talent." One of the women blinked. "Oh," the other forced a smile. "Nice to finally meet you." They shook hands. But the energy had shifted. David felt it immediately. Earlier emails replayed in his mind. "Your voice is incredible." "Perfect tone." "Exactly what we were looking for." "You sound trustworthy." They hadn't seen him then. The meeting started. Mark spoke about brand alignment. The women nodded. David listened. When it was time to discuss long-term contracts, one of them leaned forward. "Just to clarify," she said carefully, "are you comfortable being the face of the brand as well?" David met her gaze. "I was under the impression this was a voice-first campaign." "Yes, of course," she said quickly. "Just exploring options." "Thief," the other woman added. "We didn't realize you'd be—" She stopped herself. "Available for in-person appearances," she finished. David smiled faintly. He had been invisible when they needed talent. Now he was visible. And suddenly complicated. The rest of the meeting felt shorter, colder. They ended with vague promises to follow up. As David stood to leave, a security guard appeared at the door. "Everything okay here?" the guard asked, eyes on David. Mark laughed nervously. Yes, all good." But the moment stayed. Outside, David paused on the sidewalk. He took off his headphones and stared at them in his hands. They loved what he produced. They struggled with who produced it. That night, David recorded anyway, because that's what he did. But this time, he spoke differently. He recorded a short clip. Not for clients. Not for brands. For himself. And then he posted it. Not angry. Not accusing. Just honest. By morning, it was everywhere. The clip didn't explode the way David expected. It didn't scream. It didn't shock. It spread quietly. Shared in group chats. Sent between co-workers with no comments attached. Played late at night by people who sat staring at their screens a little longer than usual. Shut. That silence was louder than outrage. Within hours, comments started appearing. Not arguments, not debates, just recognition. This happened to me. I thought I was imagining it. They always loved my work. Until I showed up. David read them slowly, one by one. He wasn't surprised by the support. What surprised him was the guilt. Messages from people who weren't attacked, but suddenly understood their role in the pause, the stare, the hesitation. I think I've done this without realizing. I never questioned why I felt off, until now. David shut his phone off and sat in the dark. This wasn't about cancellation. It was about exposure. The next morning, Horizon Audio emailed him. Subject line, checking in. The message was careful, polished, neutral. They apologized for any misunderstanding. They emphasized that diversity was important to them. They asked if he'd be willing to revisit the conversation. David read it twice, then didn't reply. Not yet. He went for a walk instead. The city moved around him like it always had. People rushing, phones glowing, faces passing without memory. A delivery driver nodded at him in passing. An older woman smiled. A man crossed the street when he noticed David walking toward him. David didn't react. He was tired of reacting. Later that day, he got a call from his mother. "I saw your video," she said softly. He braced himself. "Are you okay?" "I'm proud of you," she replied. "But I wish you didn't have to be." That landed harder than anything else. David closed his eyes. Me too. That evening, he received another email. This one wasn't corporate. It was from a young man named Andre Heim, studying audio engineering. Andre wrote, "I almost quit last year. I thought I just wasn't good enough. Then I heard your voice work and realized I could belong in this field too. Thank you for staying." David stared at the screen for a long time. That was the moment he understood something clearly for the first time. This wasn't about Horizon Audio anymore. It was about visibility. A week later, he accepted an invitation to speak, but not from a studio. It was from a community college media department. Small room. Folding chairs. No branding. No press. David stood in front of 20 students. "I'm not here because I'm successful," he told them. "I'm here because I was almost invisible." Told them the truth. About the pauses. The recalculations. The way professionalism changed shape depending on who was standing in the room. One student raised her hand. "Did it make you want to stop?" she asked. David didn't answer immediately. "Yes," he said honestly. But stopping would have proven something I never believed. After the talk, a professor pulled him aside. "We'd love to use your story in our curriculum," she said. "If you're comfortable." David nodded. "As long as it's not simplified." "It won't be," she promised. Meanwhile, Horizon Audio tried again. Chat. This time, the email came from Mark directly. He apologized. Not perfectly, but sincerely enough to matter. I didn't realize how much we relied on assumptions, he wrote. That's on me. David replied this time. I don't need apologies, he typed. I need systems that don't collapse the moment someone looks different than expected. They didn't respond. But something changed anyway. Other studios reached out. Some carefully. Some awkwardly. Some honestly. David chose slowly. He learned to ask different questions now. Not about pay, about power. About who decided what fit looked like, about who had been excluded before him. One afternoon, he walked into a new studio. No hesitation at the desk. No second looks. No security guard appearing out of nowhere. Just a simple greeting. David, right? The receptionist asked. They're expecting you. That was it. Nothing dramatic. And it felt revolutionary. Inside the booth, David put on the headphones and waited for the signal. The red light turned on. He spoke. The same voice. The same control. The same warmth. Nothing about his talent had changed. Only the room had. After the session, a producer shook his hand. Your voice carries trust, the man said. David smiled slightly. It always did. Weeks passed. The internet moved on as it always does. But the work didn't stop. David started mentoring quietly. No announcements, no posts, just conversations. He learned that the most dangerous bias wasn't hatred. It was comfort. The comfort of never having to question your first assumption. One evening, he ran into Larotha executive from Horizon Audio at a networking event. She hesitated before approaching him. I think about that day a lot, she said. David nodded. So do I. I didn't speak up, she admitted. I should have. Yes, David said calmly. You should have. She swallowed. I'm trying to do better. I hope you are, he replied. They stood in silence for a moment. Then David walked away. Closure didn't always need conversation. At home, David opened a new project. Not a brand campaign. Not a commercial. An audiobook, his own. It wasn't about anger. It was about presence. He recorded late into the night, voice steady, words deliberate. He spoke about rooms, about doors, PL, about how some people are welcomed and others are questioned. Your day. About how talent doesn't need permission, but opportunity often demands a certain face. When the audiobook launched, it didn't trend. It endured. Months later, David stood outside another building. Another studio. Another glass entrance. For a split second, the old tension flickered. Then the door opened. David Lewis. A woman asked with a smile. We're glad you're here. He stepped inside. No pause. No recalculation. Just space. Walked down the hallway. David understood something clearly. He hadn't changed the world. But he had changed his place in it. Sometimes, that was enough to make the system uncomfortable. Which meant it was working. The audiobook began reaching places David never expected. Not charts. Not headlines. Inbox messages. A school teacher from Ohio wrote that she played a chapter for her senior class and asked them to sit in silence afterward. No discussion. Just silence. She said it was the first time some of them realized racism was in tea, always loud or violent. Sometimes it was polite. Sometimes it wore a smile. A hiring manager admitted he paused the audio halfway through and stared at his office wall, thinking about how many times he had said, they just didn't feel right. David read that message twice. That phrase again. didn't feel right. It followed him like an echo. One afternoon, he was invited to observe a recording session not as talent, but as a consultant. He sat behind the glass while a young woman recorded lines. She stumbled, corrected herself, laughed nervously. When the session ended, the producer leaned back and sighed. "She's good," he said. "Just not sure she fits. Jet." David didn't react immediately. "What does fits mean?" he asked calmly. The producer hesitated. "You know, brand energy." David nodded. "Do you?" The man looked uncomfortable. He didn't answer. That silence felt familiar. Later, outside the studio, David watched people pass by in turns, assistants, engineers. Everyone moving with purpose, assuming they belonged there. Belonging was powerful. And fragile. That evening, David met Andre for coffee. The same Andre who had once written about almost quitting. Andre looked different now. More confident. Less apologetic. "I got my first paid project," Andre said, trying not to smile too hard. David smiled for him. "You earned it." Andre hesitated. "Can I ask you something?" "Always. Does it ever stop feeling like you have to be twice as good?" David thought carefully. "No," he said honestly. "But it stops feeling like you have to be half as loud." Andre nodded, absorbing that. As weeks passed, David noticed a shift not in the industry, but in himself. He no longer rehearsed explanations in his head before meetings. He didn't soften his voice to seem less threatening. He didn't rush to prove he deserved to be in the room. He assumed it. And that assumption changed how people treated him. One night, scrolling through old emails, David reread the first message Horizon Audio had ever sent him. "We love your voice." He closed the laptop. They had never asked where that voice came from, what it carried, what it had learned to survive. Now, people were asking different questions. About systems, about bias, about how to fix something they once pretended didn't exist. David didn't offer easy answers, because there weren't any. But he kept speaking. Not louder. Clearer. Months later, he received an invitation to narrate a documentary about media representation. He accepted. In the recording booth, as the director adjusted levels, David waited. "Whenever you're ready," the director said. David took a breath. The red light turned on. And once again, his voice filled the room. Not just trusted, respected. When the session ended, no one questioned his presence. No one hesitated. No one recalculated. As David stepped outside into the evening air, he realized something quietly profound. The world hadn't suddenly become fair, but he had stopped shrinking to survive it. And sometimes, that was the first real victory.